Hello and welcome into the Hill and Valley. My name is Nick Roby. Thank you for joining so much on the show. And if you're on YouTube, welcome to the first ever show on YouTube. Super excited to do this. So on audio still works on podcasts. We're just adding the YouTube feature of it. So thank you so much for joining us and good to see y'all and talk to y'all. I know it's been a little bit, but summer's gotten busy and, was just taking a break, and getting ready to talk. I know we've been in talking season, as they say, but as we're gearing up to football and different things, it's just time to jump back in. So it's August 1st. Let's just hop on back on the mic and super pumped. And so, as we said, August 1st, we have football this month. Maybe not for Clemson, with the last of the Labor Day weekend games, but there is actual football to talk about, which is super exciting because we've been in this preseason talking preview magazine kind of season. We've heard a lot about NIL and heard a lot about, different, like, do we need a commissioner of college football? What does this mean? All these big schools are leaving or changing. What does this mean for Clemson? We've heard a lot about grant of rights. I don't know how many times, I don't know how plugged in each of you are, or if you hear stuff. I feel like every show, when it comes to like Clemson, the ACC, you end up talking about the grant of rights deal that the ACC is plugged into with ESPN until 2036, and what does that mean, and all these different things, and super important to understand and to know, why the ACC, why Clemson's probably not going to the Big Ten because of different reasons and just all these other things. So I'm super pumped just for football and actual things to talk about. So just getting that out there so we can dive into that as it becomes needed, but just kind of feel like there's a lot of that already kind of out there, and so we can dive into that as much as y'all would like to. But I'm gonna just keep it more towards things on the field for right now, and just plus there's just so much to talk about going into the season that I don't want us to miss. Of just, next thing we know, we're like basically, a week and a half or something, like I think 37 days until Clemson football. So a lot to unpack up until that point. And so here we are. One thing I do want to get out of the way, just while we're on this topic, Clemson's not going to the Big Ten. I mean, they're just not. I don't know if you've heard, they need to be part of the AAC. It's an academic group of schools, just that the Big Ten adds in that, and Clemson's just not a part of that. And so Nebraska is the only school that is technically not right now, but they were when they joined. And so that's why you see like UCLA or Southern Cal, they're both in it. And so that's why you're seeing some schools from the ACC, maybe like a North Carolina or something like that, have been linked a little bit more with them. But honestly, this grant of rights with the ACC is very locked tight, as far as I know, and from listening to a lot of people. So unless anything drastically changes, I just don't foresee really any changes when it comes to the ACC, unless it's a Notre Dame. And honestly, it's hard to figure out what they're going to do. I could see them staying independent for a while too. So we might just be in this kind of for a long haul, couple of years, kind of thing. And so until anything changes, we can definitely talk about it. But that's where we're standing right now. If Clemson were to join a conference, it'd probably be SEC. But then again, the grant of rights trumps that. And so unless something else comes up, we're just staying pat for right now. So that being said, we've got football and a lot of things to talk about. So, but last we talked, there's been a lot happening since we last got to talk. And so it's a little bit past the time to do that, but just as a summation, with the end of softball and baseball is the last, big of the calendar, or the school calendar sports. Softball, super proud of them and the way, they made it to super regional against Oklahoma State, strong team, made it to Oklahoma City. To be, in year 3, of a program and make it to a super regional is a big deal. And to not only host a regional, but to make it pass is awesome. And a lot of cool things are coming from that. John Rittman was extended, as you would expect from just where we're going. So super excited to see where where those ladies are heading off to, and just super proud of them and the way they've carried themselves and just made just a lot of eyeballs on the program in a good way. And so up and coming for sure. Baseball, of course, didn't end like we were hoping for. Didn't make the tournament again, and just the team just dug themselves into a hole that became just too big to get out of. And then of course Monty Lee was let go. I was sad to see him go. I like him. I think he was doing a good job with I don't think he was necessarily like doing a bad job, but just the results weren't showing for themselves. And that's I like the guy and like how he was about developing players, but at just the end of the day, it's a results thing, and it just wasn't enough on the field, and it just got to the point where you probably needed to make a change and a new athletic director, and it was just time for something different. And so I wish him the best of luck, and we'll be rooting for him for sure, and all the players that he brought into, definitely a part of that Clemson family. So with that being said, we bring in Eric Bakich from Michigan. He used to be the head coach at Maryland as well, and was the assistant at Vanderbilt with Tim Corbin, and they were all assistants for that 2002 team for Clemson, which is just really cool that it's a full circle. So it was a 1 year. He was unpaid volunteer assistant, so he was a part of that team, and just that was so impressionable for him that he was always keeping his eye on the program. And so that's one of the things of people, but then as you do look more into it, as he becomes a more serious candidate and ends up being the one chosen for the program, and he comes in, I was just super impressed with him. This is his initial media conference, and wanting to bring in former players, wanting to connect different legacies. I think it's really important. You can tell just how they're wanting to reunite the Clemson program after the divide that kind of happened with Jack Leggett and the way he was let go, and just how some people didn't want that to happen, and then you just see this divide kind of happen. And Monty Lee, this has been talked about, but I think William Quackerbush on the Roar FM did a really good job, but he was just saying it really just united a fan base, because people were divided already. There was a group of fans already, no matter what Monty Lee did, almost in a sense it wasn't going to be good enough, or it was just always going to be compared, and there's just different guys, it's different eras, and so, but you still want to unite and still part of one cohesive family. And so I think just with this move, it really helps kind of unite some of that together. And so I don't want to overjump that, and just giving Quack credit where credit's due for sure. And so just wanted to piggyback off of that and saying I agree, and just super excited and ready to support these guys, and just seeing the momentum already built behind those guys, and wanting to see Jack Leggett. Seems to be he's going to be a part of the program in some way. I think just in unifying and just being a spokesperson for the program, and also just the way Coach Bakich wants to develop the guys, and how he wants to use the facility, as a classroom, and just a lot of training and developing of the person. And I think that's just a really attractive quality, because most of these guys won't go on to the next level. We have a tradition of sending, some guys to the next level, but not everyone's going to do that. And so that development as a whole person, I think is just really exciting. And I'll just say, he was in the College World Series final in 2019 at a school like Michigan, where in some of the northern schools, it's harder to do in baseball, because you just don't have as much. It just depends on the school, but even just the way the weather works, that's why you see a lot of northern schools come and play southern schools earlier in the season, just because when the season starts in February, they just don't have the ability to play outside as much as a school like Clemson does. And so super excited to see what that kind of looks like and going forward. So all to say, just wanted to put that out there. Super pumped for the program, and we won't be talking about baseball for a while probably, but really looking forward to what that team looks like. And I would just say I could see just some momentum coming, even from the commits that are wanting to come and follow him to Clemson. I think it's a big deal, especially if they're from out of the area and they only know that they're following the guy, and that they want to follow him that much. I think that's a really good sign. And so we have that. And then some other news, we have PJ Hall really quickly, big star forward. He hurt his knee. I think he dislocated it. He just had to have surgery to repair some damage on his knee, and he's out. I want to say 4 months, which could lead into the start of the season. And so it's hard to know the timetable on that. It depends probably how he feels, and it'll come back slowly. But it's a real bummer for the Tigers. And so it'll be really interesting to see. And I think hopefully maybe that will turn into some development for especially some of these younger bigs, like an Ian Shefflin or somebody like that. I think you just hate it for the practice reps that you get with just becoming a cohesive team. And PJ Hall is definitely becoming the leader on this team, especially as coming into his junior year. So, and in a very important year, I would say, for Brad Brownell. You could say Monty Lee didn't get that benefit of the doubt that maybe Brad Brownell did. When you look at the two, I think they're two different conversations and two different sets of expectations, and you have to look at them very differently. Clemson has a tradition in baseball, and the tradition in, there's 12 College World Series appearances, and but for basketball, it's just a very different set of expectations for me. I think making the postseason every couple years, you want to improve on that. That's kind of where we're at, and you want to keep building from there. Whereas Clemson in baseball, you can't really miss, the tournament. It's just that's where the program should be. And so, but if this team doesn't, perform to that certain level of probably making I would think making a push for the NCAA tournament. I don't know if whether he has to make it or not. I can't say that. That's so early right now, but I would lean towards if they made the postseason, like they made the NCAA tournament, that'd be a big deal. And PJ Hall's a huge factor in that. And so hopefully maybe it's just the early part of the year, but I really wish him all the best. And hopefully that's not anything super serious, but you hate to see knee injury, especially with a big man like that with a lot of promise and the athleticism he has. So really wishing him the best of luck. So now that we've touched on a couple of those kind of topics, wanted to kind of set about kind of a plan of action I'm kind of looking at when it comes to the month. We have a month until first games, and we're going to be getting into fall camp, which is always a funny term. I've heard people say this, it's a funny term to call fall camp August, because in South Carolina, it's 95 degrees and 90% humidity. So it feels like you're sweating as soon as you turn outside, and that's not what I picture fall with, but that's just what they call it. And so as we look into that, there's definitely some questions that we're going into, and, there's a couple questions obviously that we're wanting to look at. But, as we get into that, wanting to do a breakdown of different teams that Clemson's facing. And so we'll get into that as we get closer. But for now, wanted to just kind of start with a couple things I'm looking at as we go into the season. And so we'll break down other things later. But for now, it's just what are some questions or what are some marks? And I'm okay, this is what I'm watching. This is what I'm looking for. And when you're getting all these reports back from camp, what am I looking for? The thing is obviously going to be, DJ Uiagalelei, the quarterback. And so when you have that, you're that's the big question, of this year. And so I want to spend some time on that, but I think there's other things that you want to talk about. It can't just be that. And so DJ definitely has to play better. He has that quarterback, you could say competition, but just that dynamic of having Caleb Klubnik, the 5-star freshman from Austin, Texas, who is I think is going to be really good. And you have that pressure, and there's an option to go to. Whereas last year, respect to those guys, DJ was the guy, and so there's a different dynamic that comes into play. And so you have to talk about that, because if Clemson doesn't come out well against Georgia Tech, or they start off slow, you're going to hear a lot of that again, especially with a standalone game, as that Monday night game. And so you have that, and I think I'm really rooting for the guy. I really hope DJ can come out and perform and show that he's better. He's lost 20 pounds, I think, or so, 25. So he looks great, but I think it really comes down to with accuracy and decision making, and you really want that for him. That's a big question, but I think also we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about that. The other offensive pieces really need to be there. We had offensive line play just needs to be better, and you have changing centers, and wide receivers need to be better, and needs to be more blocking downfield, and all these different things, and then versus just DJ. Like, there is a lot, that was on him, but also, I think some stuff that was probably more on the wide receivers that he got blamed for. And so coaches know that and trust him, and I think DJ's going to get the shot. I think his leash is going to be shorter for sure, especially. Very interesting to see who starts, against NC State this upcoming on October 1st is, when that big game is. And so that's obviously a big question, and so something you want to be looking for, but I think just knowing that he's going to be the starter and he's going to get probably a couple games at least to get his bearings. But that game with NC State, that's the big one for me, because I think who starts that is probably going to start for the rest of the year, barring injury, of course, in which hopefully that doesn't happen at all. But that's really my sense of that. The big question for me is the wide receiver play, and when it comes to offense, that's what I'm looking for, I would say, more. Had Justin Ross move on to the NFL. Really hope it works for him. I saw that he hurt his foot, and so he's probably out for the year again. So really hate that for him, but thankfully he's getting an opportunity, for as talented as he is. A couple guys move on, different levels. The problem I think Clemson was having was that you had a lot of the same body type of wide receiver, and then you didn't have that slot guy, like the Hunter Renfrow, Amari Rodgers, that type of clutch person that when you're feeling the pressure of the quarterback, you can dump off and you're going to get some positive yardage out of that. I think we have an opportunity for really seeing that this upcoming year. Brandon Spector hopefully is healthy and really has the opportunity. I think he has an opportunity to do some of that. We'll see. He hasn't really gotten to play that much because of injury and COVID, and maybe Will Shipley out of the backfield, probably going to see some more of that type of things as well. It'll be really interesting to see what Streeter's offense kind of looks like. I think his offense of his hand on it, I think will be good. I talked about this on the Backyard Catch ACC Atlantic preview, which, by the way, if you haven't listened to that, definitely give that a listen and subscribe and check that out, because we're going to be doing different breakdowns of each conference. We start with the ACC Atlantic first, and so kind of talk about that a little bit. But again, just to say, if you haven't listened to that, that's more of a, what is his touch going to look like? I would say Clemson was just kind of needing maybe just a little bit of some fresh eyes on the program, or some freshness of it. I don't think it's necessarily bad. I don't necessarily blame Tony for all these things he got blamed for, Tony Elliott, and really hope he does well at UVA. But I think just when you're not executing and across the board, you just get, the hands just seem like they got kind of tied last year. So I think just a fresh start, it's just one of those situations where maybe it's just a better fresh start for everybody. And so I think even if Tony Elliott was back, you would definitely see probably some different things. And there seems like there's maybe a simplification of things, and it's just more of taking out, listening to the coaches, again, on the Roars, I was listening to the coaches. It just seems like they're trying to take away what they're not using, as you're going through the binder of hey, we're not really using this play anymore. We're not using these things. Let's just try to look at what we're actually using. Let's see what's working. What do we need to take away? Or what do we need to adjust? It's always a good time to reflect and adjust. And I think you'd expect the coaches to do a lot of that. And I think just from an opportunity for our players, there seems like you already can tell there's just some re-energizing in the program. And so really excited to see what that looks like. And I think offensively, you'll see more of those changes versus defensively. Wes Goodwin's not the same personality, Brent Venables, and I don't expect him to be, but I'm pretty confident the dude can coach, and he knows what he's talking about. And you just see all the people who've wanted him, how NFL has been asking for him to jump in on different teams, or how all the players are super excited, and how he just thinks about the game and just wanting to play for him. I think it's a big deal. He's not like the really intense sideline guy, so it's just different. I don't think it's just, they just have different personalities, and so just the way he just has to find his style of it. But I could see the defense looking very similarly, just because he's been a part of creating those defenses, all these years. and then just behind the scenes. And then you have offensively, I think you'll see probably a little bit different just because there probably needs to be a little bit different anyway, and just trying to fit the skill sets. So you'll probably see some more of the quick game aspects like I was talking about. I would expect, so there's a lot of like RPO, like read pass options. And so I'm still expecting those. There's just been, as part of that, the wide receiver also could have an option to run a couple of different routes from that based on different things. And I could see like removing maybe like the wide receiver option part of that kind of thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like taking an element out of that to make it just easier to be on the same page. And then you can add those things in as you go. But when you keep adding new people and everyone adds their little spin on it, as I was listening to radio, like that's where you can kind of get to, and you just kind of get to a place where you like have to revamp. And so super excited what that looks like. But I think an underrated thing that I've heard talked about a little bit, but I just think sometimes from a fan perspective, you don't always see is the downfield blocking of wide receivers. I think was just an area where they struggled. And I think you'll really see more of an emphasis on things like that. Like you can't get big runs unless you get, doesn't matter how good the offensive line goes. That turns from a 5-yard gain to a 15-yard gain to, like the 20-yard explosive plays. Or like a wide receiver screen to kind of get DJ going. If the other wide receiver's not blocking on that play, like it's going to be a 3-yard gain. And it just, you know what I mean? It just, those kind of things add up over time. And so I think you're going to see a lot more emphasis on things like that with the decision making and trying to help, DJ get the best shot and really just the best offense to really improve on. I think we'll learn a lot as we go throughout the early part of the year, but that's really what I'm kind of looking for. Defensively, I think it's just a matter of like, what exactly does Wes Goodwin's touch on this team look like? I think like one of the knocks you could say on Brent Venables, and there weren't many, was in some of these bigger moments. Sometimes his style was always getting the play in he wanted to be the last one to get his play in. And so some teams, they just went to a quicker hurry up style of offense to try to beat that. And so you could see, especially with the defensive linemen, you could see them not always ready to go. And I think I could see them cutting out some of it a little bit, and then just letting the defense adjust to the offense a little bit more. And so I don't know exactly how that will play out, but I could see that kind of a thing being what we're looking at. And particularly very interested to see the secondary. I think just because you lost Andrew Booth, you lost Mario Goodwich, but like Clemson's been shown with like Mike Reed, who's been asked to like try to come in, all these different programs want him. Like, who are those next guys to step up? And so Sheridan Jones and, Wiggins and those guys, I think it'll be very interesting to see what that looks like. But I also feel confident, like I'm not as worried about that. I think just the thing is just wanting that statement game with Georgia Tech in Mercedes Stadium in Atlanta. Like, it's an away game, but it's Chick-fil-A kickoff. And Georgia Tech, just honestly is a team that's been struggling, and that coaching staff's fighting for their jobs. So you want that to make a statement. But Clemson also notoriously starts off slow. So it's kind of like I wouldn't be shocked if it's like a 20 to 21 to 13 kind of a game, 21-10, where it's like people are like, oh, the offense isn't doing as well, and all sorts of things. Like the Clemson notoriously starts off slower, especially offensively, because they're trying to hold back, or they're trying to learn as they go versus coming out, firing, especially in offense. So I think don't be surprised by that. Hope's not all lost on the season if, we only win by so many points or whatever. And so, because not all wins are equal for sure. And you don't want just to only win barely by the skin of your teeth, as we've shown last year. That can come back to bite you. But it's not all lost at that first game. So we'll talk about that more later. But really just getting that out there. And so as we're wrapping up, I want to make this quick, just hitting a couple topics. So we've got those things that we're really looking for. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But really excited just for this season and what's to look like. You just see the energy on this team, and the big question was like, will this hurt recruiting, like with NIL, how Dad was against NIL. And once again, Dad was not against NIL. I think the big difference is he's against things that take away from education and like making it strictly pay for play, like a salary, because there's just different things that come with that. But for him particularly, whether you agree with him or not, you know where he stands. That's the difference. He just wants to be a part of education and making sure that these guys have something to fall back on if, for the majority of them in the 90+%, really 95+% that don't make the NFL, they have their education to fall back on, and he wants them to get paid in the midst of that. So, but recruiting is going well too. As we looked as of today on, Monday turning into Tuesday, they're number 6 in the country in recruiting for 2023. And so, I mean, I think it's just because Clemson's approaching this in their own way there hasn't been as many adjustments as to where other schools are trying to figure out what they're doing. So I'm not as worried about that. I think the chips are going to fall where they may, and Clemson's just the type of school where, people are going to come. If they want to be a part of it, they will, and if they don't, they don't. And then that's just with any school. So, so super excited. I'm not concerned at all when it comes to recruiting, and I think the chips are going to fall where they may. And Clemson's also been shown to develop, 2 and 3-star guys, like 3-star guys, into valuable pieces down the road, especially on different positions, like with safety, for example. So really just want to hit on that, and obviously there's much more to dive into, and just wanted to touch on all these different things. So, and just also announce that we're doing YouTube going forward. So tell me what you want to talk about, if there's different things with this, or do you like this format? Just different things like that. Would love to hear y'all's feedback. So if you can remember to like and subscribe to now the channel with the Hill and Valley, and I'll send links of how to do that, or where we can find, I'll post all these different things on the same social media way you've been finding the Apple podcast, or different ways you listen. So it's going to be in that same way. It's just, that's a new way to get it. If you enjoy the visual part of this podcast, but really, do appreciate y'all's support and just taking the time to listen. I know there's a lot of different ways to get media nowadays, and so especially with Clemson and different things. So just, I really appreciate it, and I don't take it for granted, or I don't take it lightly. Just how much we have available. So really appreciate this, y'all. Like, subscribe, leave a review, and we will talk to you later. Super excited. So hope you have a good week. Thanks, y'all.